Daven Marv in a few minutes. The Rabbi is out of town, so yes, I should say a few words. I would rather just Daven Marv right away, but mitzvah l'shma l'divrei chachamim. It's a mitzvah to listen to what our sages tell us, and we have such a wonderful sage here in our community. Also, maybe people want to be able to take a break, so it's a good intermission right now. We're right now coming very close to the holiday of Shavuos. We're in the last 2 weeks of the Omer, and that we can feel coming close to Shavuos. And there are many themes of this Yontiv of Shavuos. And one theme that we see, particularly in many of the Hasidic courts, is the love between God and the Jewish people, the mutual love, which we see it starts with Pesach and it ends with Shavuos. Shavuos is like the Chasana, it's the wedding. In the Rabbi Yisrael Najjar was a student of the Arizal. He wrote a stark Tanoim and a stark Suva, a document of engagement and a document of marriage between the Jewish people and God. And it's read in Sephardic circles and in certain Hasidic circles. I know in Satmar they're reading it the first day the Tanoim, the second day the Ksubah. And then we go on, also, like I mentioned, the court of Satmar, there's a very big deal, and in other Hasidic courts as well, that the bracha of Ahava Rabbah and the bracha of Ahavas Olam Friday night, talking about how much God loves us, is particularly focused on, and sung with the niggin, and it's sung during this, during the davening itself, during the service, they sing a niggin, and then by the meals, those prayers are sung as the Zmiris of the holiday. And so there's a focus on how much God loves us. And in this week's Parsha we also have, in a place where it would be the least likely place where you would think we would see an expression of God's love. In this week's Parsha, in Parshas Bechukosai, we have the Teichacha, we have the admonition, one of the scariest parts of the whole Chumash. And yet right in the middle of there, it says, even though they're there in the land of their enemies, I'm not going to despise them. I'm not going to find them disgusting to destroy them from off the face of the earth. So the Zohar Kodesh in Parshas Bechukosai, which is brought in the Chok Yisrael this coming Thursday, it says, it asks the questions, what is it saying? I'm not going to despise them, I'm not going to find them disgusting, to destroy them from off the face of the earth, to break my covenant with them. What's going on? So Rabbi Chia said, what does this mean? So he asked Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar is the son of Rabbi Shimon Yechoy. We had his Halula last week. So he says, why does it say this? Rabbi Lazar asked, it should say, I'm not going to smite them, I'm not going to kill them. What is this? I'm not going to find them disgusting, I'm not going to despise them. But that's what it says. So, what is the meaning of I'm not going to despise them, I'm not going to find them disgusting? It shows how much God loves us. It says, my time, how much God loves the Jewish people. The whole Jewish people are beloved by Him, which means I'm not going to destroy them, but the word, it's like the word kala, like a bride. What does it mean? It says, that how much God loves the Jewish people. Look, what can we compare this to? A parable. There's a man he loves a woman. Where did the woman live? She lived in the place where they're tanning leather. And the sages say that's the stinkiest place in the world, the smelliest place in the world, most disgusting smell, to the point where there's even a question that the leather tanner can even go up on the holidays to make the pilgrimages to be Oila Regel. And in the end they say they are, but they have to clean themselves up. They can't go up smelling bad. So the Ilah Havas Hitaman Layal Balalman. If that woman wasn't there, this man would have no reason to ever go to such a smelly place. However, Kaven de Hisamun Dami Be'enai Kashuka de Roichle. But because she's there, In his eyes, it's like it's a spice place. It has the most beautiful perfumes, the most beautiful smells, the nicest smelling spices. Not only does he not notice how disgusting it is in the tanning, the leather tanning place, but it's not only the lack of the negative, but it's a positive place. That it's so beautiful, it smells so nice, as if all the best smells in the world are there. So that's the parable we can compare it to. That's what it means here. Even though they're in the land of their enemies, the land of the enemies doesn't only mean that we're surrounded by anti-Semites. They're spiritual enemies also. But the Jewish soul is so holy. It's not just someone born Jewish. It's not a racist statement. A ger is also the same thing. A convert is 100% just the same, even more so because he chose it himself. But anyway, the Yeshuka Dvorsky, we're in the land of our enemies. Whether we mean physical enemies, spiritual enemies, doesn't matter. It's a stinky place. It's a place where godliness is not really what we'd expect. However, if a Jew is there, it's not going to be despised. It's not going to be disgusting. What does it mean? That because the kala is there, because God loves the Jewish people so much, his kala, that's the beloved one of his soul. That in God's eyes, the land of the enemies is the most beautiful and sweetest place because his beloved bride is there, because the Jewish people there, the Jewish soul is there, no matter where. So Rabbi Yossi said, if I came here only to hear that, it would have been enough. What a beautiful statement. So here we are, we see that the Torah is filled with love. And there, when it's talking about our exile, there where it's talking about love. The Baal Shem Tov said something very interesting, because I mentioned Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Solam, the prayers that we say before the Shema. At night it's a little bit shorter, in the daytime it's a little bit longer. Talking about how much God loves us. The Baal Shem Tov says that why are we saying so long in Golus? Why are we waiting so long for Mashiach to come? He says one of the reasons is because we're not taking as much time as we can to say Ahava Rabbah. You know, someone once made fun of one of the tzaddikim of our generation, and was a rabbi, but like a rabbi he was Orthodox, but he didn't have much respect for this great rabbi, and he said that the Geula is not going to come by saying Ahava Rabbah very long. So the Rebbe, it was the Satmar Rav, he said, he thinks he's making fun of me, he's really making fun of the Baal Shem Tov. You can't play with that fire. You know, it's enough to play with the fire of our generation, with the light of the 7 days of the Baal Shem Tov to disparage him. But what's the point? Why is that Ahava Rabbah? Why is that what's holding back the Geula from coming? Why is that what's making the exile, the Golus, longer? Ahava Rabbah. So we can always say that wherever a source is for something, we have to uproot it by its very root. So even though really, if you get to the essential root of Golus, we can go back to Adam and Chava. If you look in the Zohar, it talks in Zohar Chodesh and Eicha, it's all talking about Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve's sin, the original sin. But, alright, that's for the whole world. And yes, the whole world is suffering because of our exile. And it's not only our exile, it's the exile of the Shekhinah. It's really something ultimately godly. It's not just something parochial and small that's just for one nation. It's really the whole world. But for our nation, it was the sin of the golden calf, and then the sin of the spies. But see, afterwards, after the sin of the spies, they wanted to go in, and Moses said no, because once we're in Golus, we have to wait for Mashiach to come. We can't take things into our own hands. But anyway, putting that aside, Moses says in the beginning of Deuteronomy, in Parshas Dvarim, that you said that the Jewish people said to Moses that they said, because God hates us, that's why he took us out of Egypt. That was the mistake that they made. And that's what they said after the sin of the spies. And that's what caused us to be exiled for so long, because of this foolish idea, this wicked idea that they had in their mind that God hated them. And that sometimes people feel all the time, I shouldn't really be quoting a secular source, but it was one of the popular TV shows, Seinfeld. So there was the character George. He went to a psychologist, and he's like, "Oh, God's not going to let me be successful." So the psychologist said to him, "I thought you don't believe in God." He's like, "Well, I believe in him for the bad things." No, we got to believe in God for the good things, and that's the point of a Havarabba, is to teach us how much God loves us, and that's what we're missing. The Alexander Rebbe, the Yismach Yisrael, said that more than you have to tell someone to believe in God, you have to tell them how much God believes in them. Shlomo Carlebach used to say that a lot. And the same thing, more than you have to tell someone how much you have to love God, you have to tell them how much God loves you, which you can't measure. The Baal Shem Tov said that God loves the most wicked person more than any father ever loved a son in the world. So that's the point where we have to focus on, is if we focus on how much God loves us, when we say those prayers, those brachos right before the Shema, that's what will be the key to the Geula. And not only the national and worldly Geula, but also for our own individual lives, whatever we're stuck in our lives. If we just try to think about and meditate on how much God loves us, we can be set free. And so that's one of the messages of Shavuos. And when we think about that, no matter where we are, no matter what we're involved in, God loves us, that where we are, it's as if it's the greatest place in the world, and we can't even imagine what that means. But the Zohar says that, Rabbi Elazar says that, so we have to think about that, and then in that merit we will see the redemption that was promised very soon. Amen.